Now let's talk about the biomedical and biopsychosocial models that were presented in our chapter. So let's start with the biomedical model. It was used in the 19th and 20th centuries. The biomedical model has been used to explain health and illness, where being healthy is having the absence of disease or injury. The biomedical model proposes that health problems are rooted in physical causes such as viruses, bacteria, injuries, or biochemical imbalances. The illness is explained solely in terms of pathology, biochemistry, and physiology. For example, the biomedical model might propose that cancer is caused by genetic mutations. The model is quite linear and unidirectional. As you can see in the model, and very simplistically explained, the person or the patient starts in a normal, healthy state. Then introduces a factor such as disease or trauma or a health condition that moves the person to a disabled state. This prompts medical intervention, which will either bring the patient back to a normal state or chronic illness or death. The model fails to acknowledge if and how psychological or social processes are influencing the disease or the state of the person. As such, they see them as irrelevant to the disease or process. And this is called dualism, where you're only looking at one aspect and you don't see a connection between the mind, the body, and the social aspects of life. According to this model, cures for disease and injury require medical treatments such as vaccinations, medications, chemotherapy, and surgery. And the goal is to manage the physical complaints. The biomedical model was critiqued by psychiatrist George Engel, who pointed out that the biomedical model was dehumanizing. He felt that humans are more than their bodies, and that biological abnormalities do not shed light on the meaning of symptoms to individuals experiencing them. Engel also believed the model was reductionist. That is, he felt that biological factors alone could not account for health. In this regard, he believed the biochemical alteration does not translate directly into illness. As we saw in our text, health issues are impacted by and impact psychological factors, health behaviors, and physiological factors. Further, in this regard, psychosocial variables are more important determinants of susceptibility, severity, and course of illness than acknowledged in the biomedical model. As such, we need to find a way to account for factors beyond biological factors, to include those related to the social context in which people live and the social systems they have devised to deal with disruptions related to illness. Finally, Engel promoted that success of most biological treatments are themselves influenced by psychosocial factors, such as a patient-clinician relationship, which can influence immediate outcomes, such as adherence to medication regimens, and long-term outcomes such as cure or survivorship. In response, in 1977, Engel developed the biopsychosocial model of health. And it's just like it sounds, a holistic model that considers illness behaviors and recovery to be influenced by the physical nature of illness, that's the bio, impacted by beliefs and understandings of the condition and one's state of mind, that's the psycho, and affected by influences of family, friends, community, and workplace, that's the social. Specifically, biological aspects might include genetic predisposition, perinatal factors, neurochemistry, and many other things. Psychological aspects might include learning, emotions, thinking, attitudes, memory, and perceptions, and other things. And social cultural aspects might include social support, family background and stability, interpersonal relationships, cultural traditions, and several other factors. All three aspects are seen as an interplay or interacting so that all three aspects are involved in the cause, manifestation, course, and outcomes of health and disease. As such, according to the model, each aspect on its own is not sufficient to bring about health or illness. Hippocrates said, "It's better to know the patient who has the disease than it is to know the disease which the patient has." I love this quote. Think about this case study that I'll read to you in a second, and it's from a medical text focused on psychology and sociology applied to medicine. Okay, here's the case study. Mr. Brown is 65 years old, married with 2 children and 2 grandchildren. He was born in a relatively poor part of the city and was one of 4 children living with their parents in a 2-bedroom, 3rd-floor apartment. As a child, they ate what they regarded as good food, the best eggs, butter, and meat, as their mother worked as a cook and cleaning person for a wealthy family. His parents and siblings all smoked. He left school at 16 to work as a bus driver and then an operations manager, which he found to be demanding and extremely stressful. Mr. Brown experienced episodes of mild chest pain in his early 40s. When seeing a doctor, the doctor advised that he stop smoking, but he didn't because he didn't feel that he was that ill. Mr. Brown had his first heart attack at age 45. He now has many medications, but does not always take them because of the side effects they cause him. He is worried about his wife, who he describes as being very anxious. And he also feels he needs to push himself to keep up with his grandchildren, even when he feels he's not up for it. So think about the provider who Mr. Brown is seeing. If the provider adhered to the biomedical model, he or she would focus on physical causes of heart disease, diagnostic tests such as monitors, blood pressure, pulse, and temperature, and biological treatments, medications, or other treatments. If Mr. Brown's provider adhered to a biopsychosocial model, he or she might focus on understanding Mr. Brown, including understanding his personal story, symptoms, activities, behaviors, social and family relationships, and any current stressful events at home or at work. They might also focus on diagnostic testing, such as blood pressure, pulse, and temperature, along with psychological and social assessments. They might finally discuss treatment options and decision-making, including biological and/or therapies to address psychological and social issues, and keep in mind that side effects might impact his personal issues. And here we see a model of the biopsychosocial model. Biological factors such as genetics, physiological reactions, viruses, and toxins. Psychological factors such as personal attitudes, knowledge and cognition, beliefs, stress reactions, coping and behaviors. And sociological factors such as family and friends, workplace, community, culture, media, and society. Here's an example of how the biopsychosocial model can be applied to mental health difficulties that might impact children. Notice the overlap across the biological, psychological, and social aspects. For example, the effects of drugs and medication are aspects of all biology, social, and psychological health. Another example of the biopsychosocial model is its application to health and aging. So let's take a break now, and you can look at this grid located on Blackboard. Try to fill in the grid for each question. You won't need to turn this in, it's just a good way to bring what we've discussed together.